What's good, everyone? Come join Mr. Hawks and me for a deep dive into a super fun horror comedy, The Final Girls, in this, the 48th episode of Murders with Mertens. Hello, horror fan best friends and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 48th episode of Murders with Mertens. I am your host, Joe, and this is a podcast about horror comedies, cosmic horror, body horror, folk horror, sci-fi horror, the horror adjacent, thrillers, the psychologically terrifying, scary films in general. Each episode, I sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. Viewers, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. It certainly helps with the engagement. If you haven't already, maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you are so inclined. It's free to do, and you'll look cool doing it. Audio listeners, the show is also available on podcast services around the world like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so don't forget to leave a rating when you stop by, 5 stars if you're a real one. Enough of all that housekeeping, however, as I have the pleasure of welcoming the one, the only Mr. Hawks from Twitch TV / Mr. Hawks 182. How you doing, sir?
Howdy, howdy. I am doing well. That was a great intro.
Wow, thank you for
That makes me
that.
jealous of my terrible intros that I do.
Well, yeah, no, I'm sure you're just fine. I gotta say, the 182 kind of implies there's other Mr. Hawkses out there. I don't know. What's going
Yeah,
on there?
unfortunately, I mean, most places it has to be the 182 because Mr. Hawks is already taken. Like on Xbox,
Okay.
there's a Mr. _Hawks or Mr. Space Hawks because I think they don't do underscores. And when I look up the account, the last time it played a game was fucking Cameo when the 360 launched.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So they're just sitting
yeah,
on that shit. That's
they're sitting on it. They're not even
that's
sitting on it. They're
irritating.
adjacent to it, you
Right.
know?
Oh, God. Well, you're also from the Story Motors podcast. You recently had a mutual friend on, Madeline Stanley, as a guest, talk about all things
Mhm.
spoopy in video games. That sounds right up our alley. Um, but that
Yep.
was a fun time.
Yep. Matt Exposure. We had her on the episode this week that came out today as we're recording this.
Okay.
All about horror games, spooky games, a lot of Wake.
Nice.
A nice little conversation as to whether or not PT counts as a Silent Hill game. I say no, but it's, whatever.
Open to interpretation there for sure.
Yep.
Nice. Nice. Scary games. I like to dive into them from time to time, but I'm definitely more on the side of like The Quarry and
Mhm.
Until Dawn, because games like Alien Isolation scare the bejesus out of me. I've only ever gotten halfway through that thing. Just nope, nope. Nope. Big
Yeah.
time nope. I'm all about watching the scary stuff more so than participating in it. Um, and some people are the
Yeah, that's
exact
that's a good thing
opposite.
about like The Quarry and Until Dawn and stuff is yeah, you're kind of doing something, but you're more just moving along in a DVD menu and then watching cutscenes. So
Exactly. It's an interactive movie more than it is you are enduring the horror. Yeah.
yeah,
So Mr. Hawks, Robert, who are you? And what else are you up to?
yeah. So like you said, I'm one half of the Story Motors podcast. Motors as in mode, not motors like a car. Even though my other co-host is a car guy, so it might make sense if it was motors. But I mean, we didn't think of that when we named it. Um, and now I think it's too late to change.
Ah,
But yeah, we just have a fun little podcast. We get together once a week. We typically have like a topic. Like this week, it was horror games. Or occasionally we do kind of little challenges with each other. Like one of our episodes was to lay out the entire Nintendo Cinematic Universe. So all the
okay.
movies that lead up to the Super Smash Brothers movie, and then kind of the
Nice.
plots and everything in between. Um, so yeah, a lot of just all video game related stuff. And yeah, once a week, Story Motors podcast on YouTube, podcast services. But other than that, I mean, I love soccer, as you can probably tell by the background here. We got some Chelsea, we got Real Salt Lake, and I love pro wrestling. Like, is this the right one here? Yep.
Yep.
So we got a little Danhausen there. Uh, actually, originally modeled after the demon Pazuzu from The Exorcist. So, is it
Well,
Pazuzu? Did I say
yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that will tie in nicely with what we're about to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tonight's episode is a dive into 2015's The Final Girls, directed by Todd Strauss-Schulson, written by M.A. Fortin and his partner Joshua Miller, who happens to be the son of Jason Miller, the actor and playwright who played Father Karras in The Exorcist. Before I even got into some of the nitty gritty on the internet about, how all that ties in to this film, I just saw that, oh, he's actually his son, and fell down that
Mm.
rabbit hole for a minute. And yeah, that was really kind of cool. Um, Reading about how Jason Miller's performance in the film is kind of what inspired Josh Miller to make this one. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Also, awesome timing with this. As we're recording, we're one day away
Yeah.
from the release of, which I had absolutely not planned, but one day away from the release of The Exorcism, the film that is his second uh, time in the director's chair, and with his partner writing the film along with him again. But yeah, that's maybe not necessarily getting the greatest reviews in the world, but I hear if you're a horror fan, this is still kind of right up your alley from
Yeah.
people whose opinions I respect. So um, definitely,
And I think you
definitely
sent
down.
me, I'm looking it up, you sent me a link to the Nightlight, a horror movie podcast, where they actually just interviewed the writers.
Yep, yep,
So, and I
absolutely.
listened to that one. I just wanted to give that a shout out because that was a good episode as I was working today.
Yeah, they do interviews not as often as they do, just breakdowns of films, but every once in a while, Freddie gets some interesting people to talk to, and wow, they open up about some stuff in that one. I don't want
Oh
to
yeah,
completely
yeah.
spoil that, but yeah, blowjobs killed my grandmother, so apparently that's going to be on a t-shirt. Um,
It fucking should be if it's not already.
I know, right?
Like,
that
come
that
on.
that could be one of the next ones in the store there for Nightlight. Who knows? They just started doing merch, so make it happen, Prince and Freddie. Come on.
Blowjobs killed my grandma. Nightlight on the back.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Please. I gotta say, this is a film that went under my radar. I, really didn't know about it until it was part of just a minor little controversy last year. There was a film called Totally Killer that was
Mm,
a similar type of thing where people are suddenly in, within a film, kind of a reverse Purple Rose of Cairo last action hero. Instead of the people from the film coming into the real world, it's the people from the real world going into the film. Um,
yeah,
but
totally killer. She travels back in time to 1987, stops the killer before he can start. Look, that's
yeah.
just gonna mess up so many timelines.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Sabrina, get your head out of your ass.
Yup.
It's probably a fine. It's probably a fine movie. I'll be.
Yeah, it's probably just fine. It's just that the director of this film immediately was like, "Hey, seems kind of familiar." Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But this is kind of essentially horror tropes, the movie. You got the final girl, of course, but you got time loops, uh, a film within a film type of situation. You got interesting flashbacks, not quite fourth wall breaking, but close enough. And like I said, you got that reverse Purple Rose of Cairo or Last Action Hero type of situation. Um, Mr. Hawks, why the final girls?
So this movie was one that I honestly, it just happened to be there. Probably 2015. I think when it came out because it did festivals and it was essentially just a straight to DVD horror movie. Um, and a lot of straight to DVD stuff does not have the best
Yeah.
reputation. But I just remember being at I think at the time, yeah, I worked at a big box store. It's I think they're closed down now. It was called Walmart, but all the new movies had come in, and I just was like, oh, I'm just gonna grab a couple of random horror movies that I've never heard of for my spouse and I to watch because he fucking loves horror movies. I'm honestly not the biggest horror guy, so that's why I kind of that's why I went with like the horror comedy stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember I grabbed Cooties, which I still haven't watched. Um,
I
and
still have
and this
not
movie,
seen. I know of it, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
came out around the same time as that one with Lupita Nyong'o. Oh, shit, what's it called? The one where she's taking her class to a petting zoo and there's a zombie outbreak. Um,
I don't
oh
even
God,
know that
Little
movie.
Monsters. That's what it is.
Oh wow,
We're not talking the Fred Savage film from way back
that's
when.
the
No,
first thing. I'm like, was
yeah,
she in that? No.
yeah. She would have been a zygote back then. But yeah. Little Monsters. She's such a great performer. She absolutely glows when she's ever on screen.
Oh
She's,
yeah,
gorgeous to boot, but great performance of her just keeping a class of like preschoolers or kindergartners in Australia, um, keeping them, safe and somewhat sane by playing tunes on a ukulele and getting them through a zombie apocalypse. It's good times.
yeah,
But yeah, you got this film and Cooties, and
yeah.
it was all downhill from there, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, I honestly I saw the final girls and the cover. I was just like, oh, let me just see what this is about. And when I read the synopsis of, you know, kids or like the kids get sucked into the movie and they have to kind of work their way out, I was immediately intrigued. It's my favorite. I think my favorite things that films can do. And I think one that comes to mind obviously is Scream, is a genre film that kind of goes against or even kind of spits in the face of the rules of the genre. And this was even more meta than Scream was, and just immediately I was intrigued. Got it. We watched it that night. My spouse is like, "Oh yeah, that was okay," and I'm just like, "Oh, I love this movie. So good. Why has nobody talked about this?" Um, and then I rewatched it again last night for this, and it ended, and I was like, "Oh yes, I love this movie. I'm so glad someone's gonna talk about this."
Yes.
Um, yeah.
No,
But
that's
yeah, no,
cool.
I just pure happenstance that I grabbed this movie instead of any of the other 20 films that came out on DVD that day.
That's so funny.
You know,
That's great. I think it's pretty typical that people that think they don't particularly like scary movies or, horror in general, they oftentimes, it's not just the horror comedies, although I find that's a good gateway for a lot of folks. But there's plenty of thrillers and the horror adjacent that, work really well. It's like, McKenna, who is on here, God, better part of 2 years ago now. I got to get her back on something. But The Silence of the Lambs is just absolutely one of her favorite films. And
yeah,
that is, one of the most award winning scary movies at the end of the day ever. It's
yeah, and it
fantastic
doesn't
film.
have much. I mean, not much in traditional horror, but it's very
Oh yeah. It's
unnerving.
oh yeah, big time thriller.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah,
absolutely include thrillers in the horror subgenres. Um, God, I feel like we'd be excluding a lot of films if we didn't include thrillers.
yeah,
But yeah, horror comedies. They are absolutely fun by design, right?
yeah.
It's good stuff.
And just like any other comedies, there are some that are just awful,
Oh
just
yeah.
terrible films and terrible movies. But I this one is not one of those terrible ones.
No, no.
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. This like I said, it's like horror tropes, the film, but
Hmm.
some fun performances. It's got a stacked cast. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
it's one of those ones where you look at the cast now, and it's not Scott Pilgrim.
no,
Okay,
no,
it's like every single person at Scott Pilgrim went on to be a megastar. But I mean, you got Thomas Middleditch, who then went on to Silicon Valley. Adam Devine, Workaholics and everything. Workaholics, yeah, Workaholics.
yep.
Nina Dobrev, who I think even at that time was, I think, in Vampire Diaries, or at least she was
May
on
have been.
Degrassi. Um, but yeah, it's just a great cast, and and Malin Ackerman, my God,
Yeah, she's
my God,
very, very good in this one.
yeah,
Um, and I feel like you don't see her every day either. So, I think she's maybe a little more choosy with her roles. I don't know. But, you know, uh, one hell of a performance from her. I feel like, and I did put this into my notes, deeper into the plot, but Adam Devine, I think he's halfway playing his character from Righteous Gemstones. Um,
yeah,
but it's it's good. It's
yeah.
he knows his comedy wheelhouse, and yeah.
I mean, if you're good at it,
Oh God, yeah.
might as well.
He's a funny
Yeah,
guy. It's
yeah.
but yeah, everybody really very, very good performances. Yeah, and the one drawback for me is some of the effects in the film. The computer generated stuff, which you know, a,
Hmm.
some of it is just a little over the top. But that's
I think
like
I
if
have
that's
something in mind that you're referring to. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's
if
yeah,
that's like the biggest complaint about this film, it's not much of one. It was a good
yeah,
time. Definitely a good time.
yeah.
And one that I would recommend to people that have not seen it for sure. Um, yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a tight 90. You
Yep.
know.
There's that too. That's the
Yeah.
lovely sweet spot of a horror film.
Yeah.
I just what did I just see recently on Shudder? This great South Korean horror film that just came out here recently, Exuma, about this shaman and um, her apprentice, along with this dude that does geomancy, essentially feng shui, but a little bit more broad than that. And then a guy who I think is a medical examiner as well, who are kind of this team that help people with um, spiritual matters when it has to do with like a loved one who's not sitting well in their grave or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's, kind of like a Korean folk horror film at the end of the day. But very interesting. But it's like 2 hours 15 minutes, and it's all subtitled. And I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with subtitles. I love foreign films, but at the end of the day, it does make it just a little bit more of a slog and hard to watch while you eat, because you have to focus on the screen, that kind of situation. So I get a lot of
Yeah.
movie watching done over dinner, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
so
I put this on when I watched it last night. I put it um on my computer screen right here, my laptop screen right here, while I was playing, just kind of absent-mindedly playing like Fallout 76 on the TV, just to
okay.
kind of like have something to run around at. And I think by like the last 30 minutes, I was just sitting there with my controller, just
Character running into a wall.
yeah. The
Yeah.
camera's just panning around me because I haven't moved
Yeah.
the thing for too long. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Been there. Absolutely. Uh been nodding off a time or two playing Ghost of Tsushima. Finally getting back into that game because it's one of those things where I started it when it came out, and The Last of Us Part 2 just overtook my attention and never got back to it. So
yeah,
finally making that happen. But yeah, what do you say we jump in here? Um
yep.
we start with a knockoff Friday the 13th music and an old school trailer for an 80s slasher film, complete with the over the top film grain and Kumbaya No as the tagline.
Instead of Kumbaya, they'll be singing Kumbaya No. And that was honestly that was my first note, was just that line,
Yep.
because that
It's
just
good.
encapsulates this movie in a movie.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We cut to a young girl, Max. She's watching this trailer on her old school cell phone, and she's kind of shaking her head in disbelief, and kind of puts the phone away and picks up a headshot from a box at her feet. We're introduced to Amanda Cartwright from the film. Her resume on the back lists her film and television roles. Good amount of horror there. The only film title that seems to be real is Chopping Mall, which is a Barbara Crampton film about robot security guards in a mall going berserk and killing everyone. Um, yeah, I checked, and
They would have had to know that was a real one and not just be like, this is a good pun.
I think that's one of those things where it's such an over the top title, and everything else
Yeah.
that's listed on the resume is an over the top title. They're throwing it in just to see who the real ones are. Yeah, and I checked, and her mother's character's name is not a character in the film. I've never personally seen it. I should
Yeah.
get to it at some point. Barbara Crampton's a great scream queen, but yeah, yeah, no, she wasn't in there. I mean, she kind of
Like,
looks to the side and sees. Oh, go
one thing
ahead.
about this, I'm like, why is she just watching the trailer for her mom's movie?
Something
Just
to
in the
do.
middle of the day.
Yeah,
Like,
something to do.
just I'm sitting here and I'm gonna watch I'm gonna watch the trailer for this '80s movie that my mom was in. I mean, it's obviously like it's a movie magic thing, but I'm just like, that's I'd be texting probably.
Yeah,
I don't know, but
yeah.
whatever.
Um,
Kids.
I found it odd that she was just waiting in the car with the windows up and everything.
Yeah,
Um, Seems odd, but she looks to the side and we see Amanda, her mother, approaching. She doesn't look very happy. She's just, sucking down a coffin nail there, and just beating feet back to the car. She puts out the cigarette, she hops in the car. Um, she's not pleased. She bemoans the fact
yeah,
that while she's done arcs on CSI, the casting director for the audition she was just in only remembers her from Camp Bloodbath. Um, clearly she was never embraced as a scream queen, like status like Crampton or, Jamie Lee
yeah.
Curtis or anybody like that. But, she tells her daughter never star in a slasher if she ever becomes an actress. And Max, she has no desire to pursue that life. She tells her mom that she's the actress. And
Yeah.
Malin Ackerman,
She,
gives us
she
this.
wouldn't be. I wouldn't be caught dead in a movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the line?
Ackerman gives us an awesome, breathy,
Yeah.
I'm a movie star line. And, they drive off to a diner to drown their sorrows and, probably carbs, I would assume. I know I
Probably
would.
pancakes.
Oh,
Pancakes are great.
God, yeah. That sounds fan
Yeah,
fucking tastic. Yes.
they're not waffles, but they're good.
Yeah. As they drive, we see that the teenage daughter is more of the adult. Reminder their mom that they owe a $174 electric bill. Amanda doesn't want to talk about it. Instead, she brings up the man she's seeing, who's flaked out on her. She was supposed to go away for the
Yeah.
weekend, and it's not happening because clearly he hasn't been in contact. And Max just tells her to forget about him, that he's not serious. And for a moment there, Amanda's kind of impressed by her daughter trying to take care of
Hmm.
her. And she sees that she's the adult there. And so, in an attempt to kind of lighten the mood and not let her daughter grow up too fast, she snatches the bills out of her hands and tosses them out the window. Max is kind of shocked, and she immediately tries changing the subject again when Betty Davis
At,
Eyes comes
at
up on the radio because that's
at this
their
point, I'm wondering
song.
how long they were in the car,
I
because when
don't,
she came back to the car, it was the middle of the day, and then by this point,
yeah,
it's
I think
it was the middle of the
they
night.
had already
But
gone to the diner and
yeah,
maybe they were on their way home, something like that.
okay.
But Yeah. The what is apparently
Get
their
the Betty Davis
song, Betty
eyes.
Davis
Yeah.
Eyes, pops on the radio, and we get Amanda doing this over the top lip sync, and Max calls her a dork because she's mildly embarrassed by her mother, again wanting to feel kind of grown up, and Amanda admits that her life just it's not what she wanted it to be, but she knows she got her daughter right, and it's a
Yeah.
pretty good touching moment there. She tells her that she loves her, and they continue to lip sync together. And it's so hard to tell how this happens, but Max somehow knocks her drink out of the cup holder and
Yeah. I
into.
think the drink, because I went back to look, and I think the drink was like in her lap.
Okay,
Instead of in the cup holder, it was like in her lap in between her legs, and then
gotcha.
probably she was like moving it, just kind of it fell over into this box of headshots.
Right. Which
Yeah.
freaks out Amanda because of course she's not doing so hot, and headshots are
Oh yeah.
expensive. And she's a little distracted, and she ends up like blowing through an intersection or something, and a car coming 90 degrees to them smacks her in the rear driver's side quarter there, and we get an incredibly violent roll that they tumble into
Yeah.
here. That's part of the computer generated stuff that I'm bringing up.
Yeah.
Just
That's
not even
that's the thing that
just
I thought of.
that.
Like,
It's
yeah.
when it cuts to nighttime and they're on this road, the way the car comes into the frame, it's like over the top computery. It's
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. I would assume that this was done in a way to maybe save some money on like wrecking practical cars. It's
Yeah.
because that gets really expensive, as expensive as computer generated animation for stuff like this is. Wrecking a ton of cars and closing off streets and all that, it's kind of pricey.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And this was I took a note here after the crash and just wrote how fucking fast were they going? Because like if they were going like 35, 40 miles an hour and they got hit, it almost seemed like when they got hit they accelerated and then the car like jumped and started rolling and rolling and rolling. And it was, yeah, just completely over the top, insane crash.
yeah, and when the car,
And yeah, when the actual hit happens, it's
yeah,
very much it happens, and then the car like kind of fishtails in a weird, not a real way,
crashes
and
through
then just
some
starts. Yeah,
barricades
it's
for a
insane.
construction
Yeah,
area
because of
too.
course there's a construction barricade in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah,
it was weird. But
but
yeah, when the car finally comes to rest, then we get the title card, the final girls, and then a big 3 years later set of text there, and we get
it
Max.
actually is 3 years later.
Yeah, we get Max sleeping in past two, and she's a little zoned out watching an old home movie of her mother and her dancing around in the backyard like her mother had mentioned they used to do. She's just kind of absent-mindedly watching this until her aunt calls to her that her friend Gertie's there. And we just cut right to them driving off to a study session with their friend Chris. Uh, Gertie seems to think that there's something there, and Max kind of brushes it off.
Chris
Uh,
just broke up with Vicky.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
we're
and have you
getting.
seen what Vicky posted on her Facebook page?
Uh-huh. It's a
You know,
poem/suicide note, and Gertie can't stop reading it. She
just
loves
read it
it.
out loud and
Yep.
laugh to myself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. She's a good friend. Um, because Vicky is indeed the enemy. She's Max's former friend. Um, but yeah, yes, Chris and Vicky just broke up, and now Chris has offered to help Max study. She's failing a classics class. I think they're high school seniors.
Yeah.
Um, they all, yeah,
Yeah, because
again, the typical
I'm
horror
pretty sure
trope
they're
of,
seniors
yeah,
because they mentioned graduating. Like,
yeah.
do you want to graduate?
And
And
later on,
shortly after.
Vicky's talking
Yeah.
about all the applications that she's been,
Oh yeah.
putting
Yeah.
in for colleges and so on too. So that all kind of makes sense. And we continue the horror trope of people in their 20s playing teenagers, which mostly Hollywood has gotten away from, but
Yeah.
to a large degree. But But yeah, I think it's fun to have people that clearly are
Clearly,
older.
you're not in high school and you're a high schooler. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's once like this is the perfect film though for that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like this, they could have had fucking Vin Diesel being a junior, and it's like, okay, yep, that's this world. Let's
Yep.
go.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's the world we're building. So
Yep. They get to the diner where they're discussing Greek mythology, and okay, it's super clear that Chris is really into Max. He's way over accommodating, and
yeah, you
Gertie's
can
just
copy my
eating this
notes, or I
up.
can just give them to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Gertie's enjoying herself. Living vicariously through all this stuff. Um,
and
and
then the
they,
the story they're going through is the story of Persephone being
mhm.
stuck in hell with Hermes, and Hermes kind of being the voice of reason and being like, we need to calm down, or else we're never gonna get out of here. Which
Yep,
on the nose,
yep,
but
a little bit.
great, great.
Yeah, they are interrupted by Duncan, Gertie's stepbrother. Of course, he introduces himself as brother, and then she throws the stepbrother in his face, and he finds it very hurtful, of course. Uh,
Brother, stepbrother.
mhm,
Why? You're
yeah.
so mean.
And he's there because he's been trying to get Max to go to this double feature of the Camp Bloodbath films later on that evening. He's discovered that Max is the daughter of one of the leads of the film, Amber Cartwright. And, he's a super fan. He's, what do they call them? The
He's a mathematician,
Bathomatician. Yeah, which is
which
horrible.
is just a phenomenally horrible
Oh yeah,
name. It's like, what's that? Oh, it's Camp Bloodbath fans. Kind of a nickname we gave ourselves.
yeah,
It's like, a nickname becomes 1,000% less cool when you give it to yourself.
yeah, yeah.
But Mathematicians is terrible.
Oh yeah,
And I
which
want a
is so
tattooed
funny
on my
because
chest.
they bring up the bad dialogue as something worth praising with these old films, and
You know,
they purposefully have bad dialogue in the movie within the movie. Yeah, it's a little over the top meta, but
yeah,
it's good fun. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
so
a
he,
movie. Well, I mean, it's what did he say? It's like a grandfather of the camp slasher films, which I think is the quote that when he's talking about Camp Bloodbath,
mhm.
and I'm wondering if this is like a universe where
Friday
Friday
the
the
13th
13th
doesn't
never happened,
exist.
and this
Yeah,
was Friday the 13th.
yeah,
If
because
not, seems like a copy of Friday the 13th.
yeah, a little bit.
Just saying.
It's a good 5, 6 years after. If this film was 86, yeah, it would have been a
Hmm.
good 5, 6 years after the first Friday the 13th. I'm sure there are other films that are somewhat similar to Friday the 13th that went under the radar, but of course, that is the classic. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would really like her to make an appearance because that'll do wonders for his credibility with all of his film nerds. And she's been ignoring him because
Mhm.
he's exploiting her family ties. Um,
And he's
and
such a dick about it too
oh
when
yeah.
he's bringing it up, and the I think what was it, Chris is at the table and he's like, what's you know Camp Bloodbath, and he's like, oh, it's this terrible great horror film, and Max's mom plays this shy girl who then just gets you know sliced on a waterbed, and
Mhm.
Max is sitting there like,
Yep. Because at the end of the day, this is actually the anniversary of her mother's
yeah,
death. So that's part of why she's been kind of zoned out for a good chunk of the day as well. Probably why she's sleeping in past two. I would assume this is a Saturday because I can't see,
yeah,
but still, um, that's kind of late.
it's got to be a weekend day or something like,
Yeah. So Max,
yeah,
she's not having it. She storms off, but before she can walk out the door, Duncan offers to do her homework for the class she's failing for the rest of the year if she goes.
yeah.
Cut right to the theater that night, and Max is just
Well, this is a note that I took, and I wrote, is Silicon Valley in their high school? That Silicon Valley is Duncan. Um,
Mhm.
or was he in the high school with them, or was he already graduated and he's just going to copy his own shit? Like,
That's hard to
I
say.
kind of got the vibe that he was older,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
mostly
I
just
don't.
because he's kind of a creep. It's
Yeah, and then you
yeah,
see his beard and you're like, oh, he looks older, so maybe
yeah,
he is a sophomore. You
could
know?
be. Could be.
But
Who knows? It's yeah. But yeah, he definitely gave me that vibe as well. Like maybe he's in college and he went to their high school a couple
yeah,
of years before. I don't know. I don't
but
know. But
yeah,
yeah, weird that he wants to keep hanging out with these people too. I don't know. But at the end of the day, yeah, he does convince her to go. And yeah, cut to the theater that night. She's on a street corner, kind of transfixed by the marquee, and Gertie's able to sneak up on her and give her a little scare. Um, she goes on, Gertie does, about Chris just fawning all over her and who should show up but Chris.
yeah.
And Gertie goes to get popcorn to give them some time alone. She's a good wing woman. Uh, but
Gertie is a pro.
yeah, yeah,
You know, come
she's
on,
really good to Max. She's
she's
you
the
can
goose to
tell,
her man.
yeah, you can tell that she was there for her over these years since her mother's death. And
Yeah,
well, there's more about all that later, of course. But so yeah, Chris, yeah, he came because he's there for moral support. And Max admits that yeah, it's the anniversary of her mother's death, so that's why things are kind of weird. And then
did she say that when they were talking out there?
yeah, it's
Oh, okay, I must have missed that line. Yeah, because my my next note is from in just a couple of minutes from here. But
yeah,
yeah,
so they're interrupted by Chris's ex showing up, and she's also Max's ex-friend, essentially, Vicky. She's clearly trying to make Chris jealous. She's been stalking him on his Twitter.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Oh, the
Did you
line
see?
about you
No, I
lost
didn't.
3 followers.
You lost
Yeah.
3 followers today.
Yeah. Um,
And
and
she's
she's
showing off the guy that she's seeing who's driving them there.
I think it
And
was just her Uber driver personally.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
What was his? I
uh,
don't even know. Yeah, he had a name, but I don't even know if it's in
it
the
started with a
IMDb.
T.
Yeah. Oh, I think Tyler.
Trevor or Tyler,
Trevor or
but
Tyler.
they get the
Yeah,
names
something. Yeah.
screwed up purposefully.
Yeah.
Gertie, just because she's being a little bitch about it, which is awesome. But yeah, yeah. So they drive off to go get parking or whatever, and then we cut to inside. Where Vicky is droning on about her college applications and the fact that
Her
you
her
know
what? Her safety school, Cornell and
right.
Stanford. She doesn't even know if she's gonna apply for them or
Yeah. Yeah. Because
yeah.
she's, the mean girl, right? Again, you got to have all the horror tropes, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And she brings up the anniversary of Max's mother's death in kind of an odd moment of actual kindness. You
Yeah,
can,
I didn't get the vibe that she brought this up to be an asshole.
right.
And this was in my note, literally right before that I was typing it, and I said, did they hold this marathon on her mom's death anniversary on purpose? And then I wrote, wait, they did. Vampire Diaries girl just brought it up. So yeah, I missed when they were outside and they mentioned it. But yeah, it was they're doing this movie marathon on the day like of the death, and it seems like that's
Kind of
kind of messed up.
intentional, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's a little fucked.
yeah. But
Um,
yeah, she doesn't seem like she brought it up to be like, oh wow, isn't this when your mom died?
no,
No, it was
yeah, there's plenty of
yeah.
other situations in this movie where she's just being cunty to be cunty, but
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
it's yeah, this seemed like an actual genuine moment of kindness. We're also introduced to her massive bottle of Adderall here, and who carries their entire prescription bottle with them? It's again,
I mean, I've
it's
got a prescription bottle in my car at all times that's just full of random, mostly like different, like ibuprofen or
yeah,
Excedrin or something, but it's just a bottle of like over the counter stuff, so we
yeah,
have it on hand. I'm not carrying my entire bottle of my fucking psych meds. Just,
Yeah.
oh well, just gonna.
Instead, I understand this is supposed to be, Chekhov's prescription bottle here, but we'll get there. We get Chris offering Max to, go get snacks, and Gertie looks on, just stars in her eyes because, clearly,
Yeah.
again, Chris is super into Max. And then, of course, Vicky
And
just,
he offers, he's like, we get a thing of popcorn and a thing of candy, and we'll pour it in the popcorn because then everything is like and that just implies that you're both going to be having your hand in that thing of popcorn the whole night, and
yeah.
yeah,
And
Chris
then, of
is,
course, Vicky just
yeah,
butts her way in, like, oh yeah, I need a Diet Coke and a child-sized popcorn. But be sure to dump out half of that into the trash. You know what? Never mind. I'll just go with you.
I'll just go with you.
Yeah, yeah. And you see Gertie's face just fall during all of
Yeah,
this. She's not pleased.
Gertie's not having it, and you can tell that like Max knows. Max
Yeah.
is picking up the vibes, but this is just not the day,
Nope.
or the time, or the environment that she wants to be in, and she can just be like, fuck it, let them go do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is where we
and
get Duncan showing up and fawning all over Max with this cringy all hail Max. And he's like, I don't even know why I
yeah,
just worshipped you. It's like, we know why, because you're creepy and weird.
because you're
Um,
creepy and you got the word out that the
yeah.
daughter of one of the stars was here.
Yeah. I've got in my notes here,
Yeah,
he's super weird. And now the sexual assault allegations all make sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So let's see here. Cut to the theater, and I cannot remember sitting in such a crowded theater since maybe like Endgame or Rise of Skywalker. It was definitely like pre-pandemic that it was such a
I just
crowded
wrote,
theater.
remember full movie theaters? Those were the days, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like just the camera going over, and the line that right before they go in the theater where Duncan is like, "Hey, so I can put you down for the Q&A, right? Afterwards, where we just ask you about your movie or the movie and your mom," and she just looks at him, doesn't say anything, and he just kind of backs away, and he's like, "I'll pencil you in," and just turns around, trips over
Hmm.
the red rope, the velvet rope. Um,
Yeah. He's trying to do a cool little hop over it and gets his
yeah,
feet caught up in it. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, a full ass movie theater
Yeah.
and brought me back.
Yeah. I miss
a,
those
a
days too.
movie theater for a screening of two probably shitty 80s horror movies that just happen to be one of them happens to have someone that lived in their town,
Right.
you know. But it's fun.
Yeah.
The kids do things.
Yeah.
Whatever. There was no Xbox Live at this time. Let's just assume, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. This is the universe where there's no Xbox Live and no Friday the 13th. It's the bad timeline. Um,
Yeah.
so,
It's just Camp Bloodbath and Nintendo Switch Online for everybody.
oh, the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is
That's
the
bad.
universe where the Dreamcast didn't fail.
Don't say
I miss you,
that. We might
Sega.
not have ever gotten great Persona games.
Oh, that's fair. I
Uh,
fucking love me some Persona games. God damn.
hell yeah. Um, so the film begins and Amanda's character is introduced. Chris turns to Max here and asks her if she's okay. That's
Yeah.
good. I like that a lot. Back to the film, and Nancy, Amanda's character, tells the story of Billy Murphy to the other counselors, and we get this flashback to 1957, where the asshole counselors trap Billy in an outhouse and throw firecrackers inside, and we cut to later
That
in the
is
film. Nancy's
that
about
is
to,
also just one of the most like blood-curdling screams
oh
in a
yeah,
movie. When Billy is in the outhouse and the firecrackers are going off, and that actor is just screaming his fucking head off.
yep,
And it sounds painful.
can't be good.
But no. No.
No,
I mean, like nowadays, those firecrackers would have probably just been little tiny things. But firecrackers in the 50s, I'm assuming were just full of fucking napalm.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
They had a lot after the war.
Had to use it on something. Um, yeah, we get to later in the film where Nancy's about to get it on with Kurt, and we get a few on-screen events matching up with things in the theater. The dudes lighting up a joint when Nancy's lighting a candle. We get the guy drinking
Yeah.
from what has to be like a bottle of Everclear because most booze
Yeah.
does not light up like this. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Fucking degens bringing in booze and cigs.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Come on.
Um, so yeah, the guy with the liquor bottle, it's matching Kurt drinking his beer on the screen, and he passes the bottle to his buddy, and it slips through the guy's hand, rolls down the road there, spilling booze all the way along, and eventually getting up to the curtain at the side wall of the theater. Um, and
Just perfectly rolls in between the seats all the
mhm.
way to the wall.
And
Doesn't
doesn't the bottle
break. And
shatter at the wall?
nobody seems to fucking he hands it to his friend. His friend doesn't grab it. It drops. And they're
That
just
would have been
like, "Well,
so
that's it."
fucking loud in that theater.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. In depth, like during this scene where Nancy's getting ready to, you know, become a woman.
right.
Like that's definitely not a loud scene, but yeah, it's just drops this bottle that if it didn't break, that means it's thick ass glass, and that's gonna make a sound.
Yep, exactly.
Depending on how full it is, it's probably just gonna roll around and not actually go anywhere. But no, rolls all the way down, and yet then it hits the wall and smashes.
Yeah, it smashes up against a big heavy curtain.
Yeah,
That's where it breaks. Yeah.
that's where we're at. Yeah,
Yeah. So on screen, Kurt sort of disappears and we get the knockoff Friday the 13th music playing. And in the theater, the cherry falls off the dude's joint and in slow motion, of course.
yeah.
And Max, she knows her mom's death is coming up. So she says she's going to get up to go get some air. And just as she steps away, that's when, the flaming ash there connects with the booze and it all lights up. And it's absolute fucking chaos, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's panicked. Somebody had brought a machete with them into the theater.
And an
Like,
actual machete. Who was security at this fucking theater?
exactly. This
You
is
just got a giant fucking handle of goddamn Everclear. You got somebody. If it wasn't even weed, it was just lighting up a cigarette in the middle.
right.
And now
That's
there's a
why I
straight
think
up
it has to
machete.
be
Like,
weed. And this is clearly in a time
yeah,
frame that is post The Dark Knight Rises.
yeah.
So yeah.
Post The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, unless that never came out in this universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Christopher
Heath
Nolan
Ledger
was
didn't
never
die.
a thing.
Yeah, Heath Ledger didn't die, so it was just Joker in The Dark Knight Rises. So I mean, it was a
Yeah.
different film and came out at a different time.
Yep, exactly.
You know,
Um,
and this theater goes up like a fucking Great White concert.
you know it. And that machete, Max picks it up and she kind of takes charge all of a sudden.
Yeah,
She asks Duncan if there's an exit behind the screen, and she leads her little group of friends there and frenemies up onto the stage. And as Billy delivers his blow on screen, Max slashes through the material there,
yeah.
and everybody starts piling through the slit to escape. And Max takes this one last look at the carnage, like you said, like a great white concert. Wow, that's awful. but
Hey, you're the one laughing.
yeah, I am. I
All
am the
right.
sick fuck who's laughing at that. Yes. And she takes one last look at this chaos and steps through herself, and we kind of fade to white. And
I was
Max,
wondering, like, so when they went through that to, what was the exit door in the back of the theater, are they just in their mind being like, "Yep, everyone else here is dead. All right,
no,
just
follow
leaving everyone
me.
die."
Hey guys, this way. No, none of
Yeah.
that. No.
No, just
No.
oof. It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Well, hope they found the back door. It's yeah,
because there's no emergency exit here.
clearly not. No,
'Cause this
this
theater was built before
I mean,
1957.
it was an old school theater, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I would assume you would have upgraded with a few emergency exits at one point or another. But it's a movie. Um, we fade to white, and Max slowly waking up, and she sits up in this ridiculous bunch of flowers in the woods, and everybody else is coming to as well. And I think this is like one of the remaining parts of how the filmmakers, they wanted the movie world to be like this over the top Technicolor type of thing, and then they showed up on the sets and it was this. It
Yeah.
was,
These
I
insane
read about
flower
this
beds and
somewhere.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And like just the counselor's cabin and all the other little details. It's so bright.
Yeah.
Their old school VW bus, everything is over the top bright and 80s and just super vibrant. Um, but yeah, everybody kind of comes to, and Max realizes that somebody's coming, and we see the van from the beginning of the film rolling up, and this girl leaning out asking if they know the way to Camp Blue Finch. And I love this bit where Duncan blurts out her name, Tina, and she reacts without realizing that it would be weird that he would know
Yeah.
because
This random
she
person in the
dumb.
fucking woods. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Tina is not bright. um, but yeah, everybody just kind of stares at each other, and Kurt just drives off.
Yeah.
and they're wondering if they're having a psychotic break or a collective dream. Duncan's weird again about some shit, and Gertie vomits, and we get the text of 92 minutes later.
Yeah. And I think you see the gears turning in Duncan's head already because he,
Yep,
obviously these are characters, and he sets a timer on his watch,
yep, yep.
and that's when the 92 minutes later he's like 5 4 3 2 1, it beeps and they come back.
Yep.
So
So yeah, they're wondering if they're dead and in heaven, and Vicky is gross and says that it can't be because Max is here and she's
and
Jewish.
she's Jewish.
Just wow. Just fucking wow.
It could be Jewish heaven,
You're right.
you know.
Then they hear the van coming again, and it's Tina again who delivers
Mhm.
her line in the exact same
Same line.
way
Yeah.
again because it's perfection, right? And this time Chris manages to give directions as the others continue to stare in disbelief. He's like, it's down the road.
Just keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gertie thinks they're all nuts, and Duncan has this Wizard of Oz moment. Um, he's Dorothy, even though he should be Toto, honestly. He's like, I don't think we're in the valley anymore.
Yeah.
But this is where he sets that timer. Yeah. Because then
Yeah.
we get the text another 92 minutes later. And as Max is trying to get a signal on her phone, Duncan counts down to another appearance from the van. This time, when Tina asks for directions, he tells her, hey, they're all counselors too. And yeah, we can show you the way if we could get a ride in the van. Chris is kind of doubtful, but they all pile in. I saw in some trivia somewhere the order they get into the van is the order in which they're killed off.
Yeah.
That's a fun little thing. It's like I think it's, what is it, Alien? They all wake up in the order in which they die.
In which they die. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Kurt notices they don't have any luggage right away and immediately assumes the five newcomers are poor.
Yeah.
Um,
You're poor? Not
yeah,
no offense, but your clothes are ugly.
yeah. Tina
Says by the
is,
guy in a crop top.
yeah. What was that? Nothing. Tina's clearly just sexed up machete fodder. Because Duncan asks her what she brought with her. She's like, yeah, bikini and my diaphragm, and yeah, that's about it.
And as she says diaphragm, it cuts to him and he's mouthing all the dialogue with
Yep.
her. Like
He's having a good time.
yeah,
Um,
he is him being essentially Randy Meeks in this
yeah.
movie. Randy Meeks from Scream. Like if those characters from Scream went into a movie, this is what Randy would have been like.
Oh,
Like I know
absolutely.
exactly what's
Hands
going
down.
on. I know, boom, boom, boom. I've got this encyclopedic knowledge of everything that's going on. But Duncan seems to be enjoying it, whereas Randy, the entire movie in Scream 1 and 2, is like,
No,
no,
he is not
everyone's
having
gonna
a good
fucking
time.
die.
Yep.
He's not having a good time. But yeah, Duncan being happy Randy, just a great nod to Scream.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
The scripted events of the film play out, and they arrive at the camp, triggering Nancy to wake up in the back of the van, which is a shocking moment for Max and her friends. You know, they do that super slow turnaround, and we get, this lady who looks like a young version of her mother being all,
yeah,
"I'm Nancy, what's your name?" And with tears in her eyes, Max answers her. And we get Tina hanging out the side of the van with the best summer ever. And we get a physical title that flies over the van and even has a crow land on it. It's,
yeah.
yeah, I love that all the text and everything is part of this world as well. And we'll get plenty more of that. Um, we get more lines from the film playing out in front of them, and Duncan, finally admits to himself that they are in the movie.
Yeah,
And we see one of the first kills, Mimi, kind of the hippy dippy girl, going off to pick some strawberries in the woods
that was her
alone.
name.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Kurt is gross about her boobs.
Do you want to come help me pick some strawberries? No, but I'll help you pick melons.
Yeah.
I meant her boobs. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
And Duncan just calls him insatiable instead of gross, or
Instead
yeah,
of creepy as fuck.
yeah,
Yeah.
again, everything about Middleditch just makes more sense. Um and they know that Mimi hooks up with a hiker and is killed, and Duncan reminds them that everyone who has sex in this movie is murdered.
Yeah.
Vicky kind of posits that they just take the van and drive off. So they walk up to Kurt to ask to borrow it, but of course, Kurt being Kurt, he tries to turn things into an exchange for sex. Vicky is not having that. Duncan is told to suck a turd, and Kurt throws the keys off towards the woods because he's an ass.
Yeah.
Um,
After he calls Vicky fun bags.
yeah.
Yeah, hey fun bags. Fun bags.
And
Yay
she's like,
feminism.
"Yay,
And
feminism!" Yeah.
and then
uh,
yeah, and Duncan asking him, "Hey, hey, zing me. Come on. Come on."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Kurt the character person is like, "You can suck a turd." Like Duncan is having the time of his life and everyone else is trying to figure out how the fuck they leave.
Yep.
And then Kurt throws the keys into just a very empty field behind them,
Yep. Yep.
and they have to go and find it in the deep, deep woods.
Yes. It's got quite the arm.
Yeah,
So it's at this point where Max takes an opportunity to talk to her mother / Nancy. And Nancy confides in her that she's going to have sex with Kurt later. And Max tries talking her out of it, ultimately resulting in Nancy telling her that she sounds like her mother. Everything is repeating, from the car here, essentially. And she does everything she can to sound like a mom, telling her to behave herself. Um, and Tina
yeah, and
is a
I
space
think,
cadet over with Chris.
and this is when I think during when they're talking, um, Nancy says, "Yeah, Kurt says the best feeling in the world is getting stoned and doing it on a waterbed. And that's what I want to do." Like,
Yeah.
just 80s schlock.
You know it. You know it.
Yeah,
Chris grabs Max to go find the others, and Nancy wonders where they all came from.
yeah,
So this is where the group is in the woods searching for the keys, just ridiculously far from where Kurt could possibly have
yeah,
thrown them. And they hear Mimi nearby and realize shit's about to go down.
yeah.
Chris wants, yeah,
This is where she dies. Yeah,
Yeah, Chris wants to warn her, but Duncan says they need to think of them like animals in a nature preserve. They must only observe. Um, And this is where this handsome hiker appears, and we get dialogue that sounds like it was written for porn. And again, Duncan mouthing along with it with this big shit-eating grin on his face. Um, what's the line? I can't
Yeah.
believe we're just going to casually
Yeah.
watch someone get murdered. What
Murdered.
is
What is
this,
this, Detroit?
Detroit? Okay, as someone from the Detroit suburbs here, I take offense to that. Detroit had the
Yeah.
fewest homicides in 2023 since 1966, only 252. So, hey,
Yeah, but you got to remember this is 2015 or 1987,
I
depending on how you look at it.
suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she can still fuck off. Vicky is absolutely a mean girl. But yeah, we get
So this was one of the, I mean, not the first thing. Well, actually, might be one of the first things where it seems like Duncan's love of movies is kind of becoming a problem for them,
yeah,
because Duncan is like Duncan's kind of thinking of this as like a Back to the Future, where we can't mess anything up or else bad things are going to happen. Whereas this is a completely different universe, I guess, the way you can look at it. So, do those rules even apply? And why is he thinking of these rules? And everyone's just like, well, I mean, he watches movies.
yeah. I
He
mean,
probably smart guy.
ultimately, it does bite him in the ass here before too long.
Yeah.
We've got Mimi and the hiker. They're making out, and all of a sudden, the music kicks in, alerting our heroes. They all
Mhm.
hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Billy steps into frame right in front of them, just out of nowhere. Um,
And I thought
and
that was another great touch, like you said, with the words flying over the bus and then them hearing the
yep,
the the, the Jason noise,
yep,
which that's what it was.
yeah,
Let's just be honest.
yeah, yeah. They
You know.
use the exact same syllables and everything.
Yeah. It's fine.
Um,
Fine.
so
There
yeah,
was no Friday the 13th in this world. They weren't ripping anything off, so it's good.
yeah, it's totally fine. We get Billy snapping the hiker's neck, and Mimi reciting lines from 80s Wendy's ads. Where's the beef?
It's the beef. Where's the beef?
Yeah.
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 Oh, we
And
did miss another 80s
oh,
reference when before they even go into the woods. I think Tina's talking to Max, and she says, "Dibs on the one that looks like Ricky Schroeder."
right.
So just phenomenal. But yeah,
Yes.
where's the beef? Hey, where's the beef? Like almost as if, and this is like Billy sees them at this point, right?
Uh-huh.
I believe so. So she's like, "Hey, where's the beef?" Billy sees them, so he's not hitting his mark.
Because he's a
And
little
then she's like,
distracted. Yeah.
"Okay, where's yeah, like a stage actor saying the
Hmm.
line again louder."
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And then she turns around and Billy grabs her by the throat and lifts her up. I think he essentially kills her by ripping her throat out, although they don't really show it. They just have
yeah.
him lifting her body up and throwing it at the log that, the five people are hiding behind. Chris yells, run, and most of them flee, but Duncan, he stays behind. He doesn't think that Billy's going to hurt them because they're not part of the film.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He thinks that Billy just, he won't know what to do with them because they're not part of the
yeah,
film. And he wonders if that's just corn syrup, if all these characters are just walking around with corn syrup in their veins, and it's time for a taste test. And of
yeah.
course, it's blood. Um, yeah, yeah.
And then
But he's still convinced that
yeah,
nothing will happen to them and that they just need to get to the end of the film. Paula's the final girl. They just need to find her and stick with her and wait it out.
yeah.
And then he gets the brilliant idea to take a selfie with Billy.
And you can tell this is a 2015 selfie because there's no front camera, so you can see him trying to line it up
Right.
with the screen right there. Which
Yeah.
I once again I went back and looked because I wasn't sure. I did notice it at the second time, but at first I couldn't tell if you could actually see Billy in the camera on the phone as he's walking by. So I was wondering if like that was a thing. Then I went back and watched it, and it's just like a weird perspective thing where you kind of only barely see Billy behind there.
Gotcha.
I thought it was like make a fucking vampire thing, where he's not showing up.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
Well, Billy approaches and stares him down, then walks away. And everyone just lets out this little nervous laughter. And then Duncan takes a machete to his side, dropping to his knees. Um,
just thrown from off screen. Just
right.
oh.
Yeah. After this whole, God, I almost peed my pants. You did pee your pants. And that's when the machete comes in. Yeah. And the remaining foursome tears off screaming, and they end up in something of a loop because they're not allowed to leave, right? So you've got Blake, the dude with the massive earring. Where are you going? You're going to miss the slumber party. And then Tina, as they run back into frame, you came back. Yay.
Yeah.
Repeat with, where are you going? You're going to miss the slumber party. You came back. Yay. And they
it's great because it's very clearly 3 takes. But you can it just looks it's just I don't know why this made me laugh so much that it's the same thing, and by the 3rd time she's doing it, it almost seems like she's fucking annoyed that she has to do it, but she has to do it. So she's like, "Yay!" 2nd time, "Yay!" 3rd time, "Yay!" Like you can see her the person in the movie or something just going over this line over and over again, but not being able to not do it.
Right. Right.
And maybe I'm just reading too much into dumb shit.
No. I think that's a good take there. I love that it's all shot with this like super wide angle, like 90s music video, fisheye lens. And it really
the rotating camera watches them run across the street. You came back, yay, and then watches them run across it. And yeah.
Yep. And they realize it's the movie. The movie won't let us leave. And, just quick cut to the sing-along inside the house. It's, I can't remember if this is one that they use in Friday the 13th or not. It's wow. And everybody from the movie is super amped up and having the time of their lives. And meanwhile, our 4 remaining heroes, they're pretty
you can tell that they've seen shit. Yeah.
Gertie's distraught.
I think I like the loop. One, as it's just it's a good scene. It's a great shot of it going back and forth and back and forth. But it's also a way to tell us, hey, even if they found the keys, they couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So this plan that they had to grab the keys, grab the van, leave, like, no, they're in this movie. Like they can't leave. Because they never really went back and like got the keys and tried to leave at that point. They realized, no, we're stuck here.
Yeah. Well, Gertie is absolutely distraught because she just saw her, stepbrother murdered. Vicky wants to arm up. She wants to know where all the chainsaws and the knives and the axes are. And
where are all the chainsaws? This is a camp.
Yeah.
Like, or something like that. Yeah.
And just as Max says, there's got to be a way to get out, we get the arrival of Paula, the badass. She shows up in this beat to shit, but still super cool muscle car. She's got her motorcycle boots and ripped up jeans, and she immediately sparks up a cigarette.
Her hair is 3 feet tall.
You know it. It's Kurt is gross as always, and Paula calls him a needle dick. And he essentially just is more gross after that.
It's like saving myself like a hammer for someone without a needle dick.
Yeah. It's like a hammer. It's like a sledgehammer.
Like,
yeah. And Paula immediately notices
Kurt so much.
I know. He's absolutely the worst, but he's the best at being the worst. He's he is a trope of these movies. It's there's the one dude in sleepaway camp who is absolutely this character. There's always one. There has to be one. And this is where Paula notices the 4 newbies sheepishly waving to her from the window. And yeah, the foursome realize they need to break up to stick with everyone and ensure survival. It's it's a shame Duncan wasn't around still, because he'd probably make a comment about how, yes, splitting up is the worst idea ever,
Yeah,
but maybe not. Who knows?
yeah.
And so
But it
Max,
kind of almost like it almost seems like a good idea.
yeah,
Like
it's
actually, because they're like, obviously we can affect things that happen in this world. So if we're with these people, like they can't do the things they were supposed to do to then die.
right. Now that
Which
that
seems like
absolutely
it's
makes
it's
sense.
a kind of leak, like a good train of logic,
Oh,
but
sure.
um
And Max,
yeah,
again, still being something of a leader. It's which is not something that you would necessarily think of her character from the beginning of this movie, but she steps up in the movie theater and she steps out now. She's
yeah,
kind of handing out assignments of who's going to go with whom, and but Vicky, she wants to be with Chris, and she's dismissive when Max refers to Nancy as her mother. Chris kind of calls her on that. And, but Vicky just says, this delusional shit is going to get them all killed. And she storms off. Um, and
yeah,
then we cut to like their different pairings. So Chris is hanging out with Kurt while he's looking at a porno mag. And, Kurt, as always, super gross.
yeah.
And, Chris brings up the articles and Kurt is extra 80s and calls him a slur. Chris calls him on that, telling him to shut the hell
Yeah.
up because his dads are gay.
I have my two dads are gay.
And Kurt doesn't
So if
believe
I
that a
hear you,
gay couple
yeah,
can have kids because
yeah,
they have a pretty cool lifestyle.
yeah.
Again,
They two guys can't have kids because they just live together and they have sex and they just,
yeah, they go to the
it's almost like
disco and have sex all the
they go to
time.
the disco
It's
and have sex, and honestly, it just seems like a nice lifestyle.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So essentially, he is his
just,
character from the Righteous Gemstones because he's there. There's clearly something there that he's
yeah, what is it?
compensating for, and
Yeah, yeah. My dads are gay, so shut the hell up. Yeah, right. Gay guys can't have kids. They're too busy going to discos and having sex with each other. It's actually a pretty cool lifestyle. But and Chris also says something like, "Oh man, it's too bad all the girls here are busted." Like
right.
kind of trying to be like, "Yeah, all the girls here, I wouldn't want to have sex with any of them." Like when they're clearly fucking
Again,
gorgeous women,
trying to keep
you know?
everybody out of trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah. We've got Gertie and Blake bonding over his 37 pieces of flair. Um, because he's the dude that of course has the suspenders with tons of pins
yeah.
all over them.
All the pins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We got Tina trying to jam Vicky's cell phone into her boombox and then also asking about her Adderall. Vicky has to treat her like a small child because that's essentially how Tina is written. She
yeah.
is, the over the top sex fiend with the mind of a child.
Just the straight
That's
up idiot too. And it's a good touch that Vicky's phone case is a cassette.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so she
There's
sees
no
this and she's
holes
like,
in it.
"Oh, yeah, okay." Yeah. Because at first I'm like, why is she just trying to put this thing that's that shape? And then you notice, oh yeah, it is a cassette, and she's real fucking dumb. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Back to Kurt and Chris, where Kurt goes just a touch too far about Max, and Chris has enough, and he kind of gives him what for, puts him in a little bit of a chokehold, and yeah. Um,
it says oh fuck, I forgot the line. I missed. He says something. He's like, if I see your dick doing anything,
I'm gonna
like
cut
I'll
it
beat your
off.
ass
Yeah,
or something. Yeah, I'm gonna cut it
essentially.
off. Yeah,
Yeah. And then we're back with Vicky because she was meant to keep an eye on both Tina and Paula. Paula has brought booze. And Vicky, she's like, enough of this shit. She just comes right out and asks where they keep the chainsaws because they need to arm themselves. And, they kind of cut from this scene, but it seems clear that she was about to tell Paula exactly what was going on.
yeah.
Um, it kind of feels that way, but we cut from that moment to Blake asking Gertie about Duncan, and she lies, and he's napping somewhere. He's sleeping now. And she gets startled by a twig snapping. And, she's like, okay, we got enough wood. I think you have enough wood. We're good now. We're going to go back inside. Um, and Nancy getting ready for her evening with Kurt, and Max hears the music coming. So she
Yeah, which is
rushes.
as they walk in the bill or the door, they hear or she hears.
Mm-hmm. So,
Wait, this is when this happens. Yeah,
yep. So she runs upstairs to warn her mother. And at first, Nancy's kind of angry with Max for spoiling things. But then she realizes kind of how dumb she is about the situation. And, they kind of have a little bit of a heart to heart. Nancy just kind of wanted to feel special. And Max tells her, well, she's special to her. And Nancy's kind of finally starting to wonder who Max really is, but the mood is completely broken as Kurt enters the room. He is super gross about the potential threesome situation there, and both of the girls not having it. They both have the
yeah.
exact same response to him, or
And
reaction.
he's just standing there with his pants around his legs
Yeah, yeah.
and his shirt off, just
Yep. And downstairs, Chris and Gertie hear the music again, and he rushes upstairs while she starts to back up to a window, revealing Billy standing outside. So, yeah, Chris bursts into the bedroom, and there's Kurt again with his pants around his ankles, and they're kind of broken up from this moment by Gertie's scream. And it's not that Billy was like bursting in or anything, but ultimately she must have turned around and seen him there or something.
yeah.
But everyone races into this living room. Somehow Kurt even got his clothes on there. But yeah, with everyone,
He's a pro,
yeah, I
you know.
guess, I guess. Um, But with everyone together again, Gertie pleads with Max to just tell them about Billy, which kickstarts Nancy's flashback story. And they all kind of go to their places at the couch.
Billy
And
Mitchell,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
was the summer of 1957, and they all just
fall into
what just
place.
walk and fall into place into their seats and just pass the other four and
Uh
aren't
huh.
it's a great like this is where this movie is doing the flashback and this is where they're sitting for the flashback, so that's how we need to be here because that's where our flashback seats are.
And so that you can get the
Yeah.
diddly-doo thing
Oh yeah.
going, you have this weird substance dripping from the ceiling to create that.
I
It-
wrote that it seemed like the entire scene was melting
yeah.
into another scene, like it was almost like melting crayons kind of taking over. Um and it was just a great, that was one of the over the top effects in this movie that I loved.
Yeah, I
I thought that was a
actually enjoyed
great
this
way
one.
to, instead of just it being, hey, now we're in 1957, it's like, well, no, there's a doodly doo. But what
Hmm.
would that be like if we're standing in the middle of this and we're not part of telling the story?
Right.
Like, yeah. And I just saw that was a great way to visualize the switch to that flashback.
Yeah, and they are indeed transported into this black and white world. And I love Gertie. Why am I colorblind? Am I having a stroke?
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm always the person at work who's like, does anybody else smell burning toast right now? Because I feel like I'm having a stroke about this situation. It's and it's the same flashback from the film playing out with Nancy's narration over the top, and summer 1957 sitting in front of the car. They actually have to step over the words to move forward in the scene because they're actually there. Um, and they witness the firecracker incident.
Mhm.
And then Billy making his mask in the camp burn ward because
Yeah.
apparently this kind of shit happens often enough that you have to
This is
have a,
normal enough that we're like, yeah, it's go to the burn ward, kid. Come
yeah,
on. Come
exactly.
on.
And then we get Billy exacting his revenge on 8 counselors for the 8 months that he spent in this burn ward. Boy,
Why are they still at the camp?
You
Why are
know,
they still at this summer camp 8 months later?
I don't know. I just don't know. Some of the stuff does not add up,
No,
but
it just
it's not meant to, right?
no,
It's
not. It's
supposed to
not.
be tropey and funny and weird. But yes, he exacts his revenge with a machete in this bunkhouse, and the final blow splatters blood on Gertie. And as they return to the present, Gertie is still coated in this
Yeah.
blood, and that's where everyone
So
stares at her.
this was in one thing that I kind of wrote here that um and it just being really fucking specific and needly for this. So when they go back to the flashback and the flashback story is being told, they're they see Billy go in there, get attacked, or like get attacked, whatever. Then they're in with him while he's in the burn ward because it shows them watching him. Then they're in with him as he's making the mask, shows them watching him. Then they're in the room where he's killing everybody,
Mhm.
and she gets blood splattered, which should mean that when the movie changes scenes, they change with it. Is that does that make sense?
Yeah.
So earlier in the film, when they're watching the hippie girl and she gets killed, in the movie, it just goes back to everybody at the camp, yet they're there then for another 4 or 5 minutes talking to Billy and doing everything. So I'm like, why over here we
Yeah.
teleport, over here we don't.
Maybe just because
Um,
the flashbacks themselves are their own separate thing. Because flashbacks by nature jump around quite a bit more.
yeah, yeah.
Um I know
Once again, like
it's so
super
hard to put
nitpicky.
rules to this though. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, we get the reaction of everybody from the movie staring at her coated in blood. Smash cut to the outside with all the counselors running for their lives and Max yelling after them that they can't leave, which I'm sure really helps the situation when you're scared to death and you have this new person yelling after you that you can't leave. Um,
when all of a sudden there's somebody who just screamed in a room, and the
uh-huh.
next thing you see is that person covered in blood,
Yep.
and then this other random person, you can't leave. Cool. Guess what I'm gonna fucking do right now?
Gotta leave. Yeah. So
Get the fuck out of here.
Kurt hops in the car with Paula. Just funny because Adam Devine is actually married to this lady now. Um,
Oh,
that's where they met. This movie.
look at that. This
Yeah,
movie making love connections.
there you go. And the others run off, but Tina trips and falls, so they stop to help her, Blake and Nancy. Um, and this gives Max a moment to try explaining what's happening. And, we're doing a little bit of back and forth. The car peels off here, and we got back to Max saying that she's just trying to save them. When Nancy asks why, she almost tells her because she's her mother. The words
Yeah.
are almost there. And then back to the car, almost at the camp gate, when Duncan stumbles out of the woods. It's like, hey, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
And they just mow him down. It's beautiful. And Kurt in the car, like, oh, you killed Duncan. And then he's like, we should go to a hotel and hang out. And then maybe if something happens there, I don't know. And this is where Paula immediately rams into one of the totem poles that makes up the gate, throwing Kurt through the windshield to his death. And it's a spectacular death. It's so good the way his body's all bent up.
Yeah. I just wrote goddamn Kurt's scorpion death because that's what it was. And it
That's good.
was,
That's good.
oh my God, that was a great one.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, Paula, she's still alive, but then the car explodes, killing her quite definitely. And Nancy can't believe that these people are now dead, and Vicky tells her they weren't real, that none of them are, because this is just a movie, and they've got to go have a sit down inside.
Yeah.
And
So that was one of the, there's a few things in this movie, this scene and earlier when she's like, that's not your mom, that's a movie character and stuff.
Mhm.
Where it almost seems like Vicky is almost as much of like a movie buff as maybe not as Duncan, but because she's like, hey, yeah, these are the rules. I'm the mean girl. This, and this. You're just movie characters. You're gonna die because of this. You know, and it seemed like she's aware of the rules in the way that
Yeah.
like the mean girl in the movie usually isn't.
Yeah, she has
You know?
some media literacy at the very
Yeah,
least. They all live in the valley. They're probably somewhat exposed to the film industry, I would assume. I don't know. But yeah, they all seem to have some amount of media literacy, which is more than you
yeah,
can say about a lot of people anymore. But yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. She's the mean girl, but she knows she's the mean girl.
yeah.
Um
She knows she's the mean girl. She knows what's supposed to happen, and she's like, instead of, hey, we need to stick together, and the mean girl being like, no, fuck that, I'm gonna go hide in a closet and getting just murdered.
right.
She's like, yeah, that makes sense because we're in a movie and there's one final girl. And
Mhm.
she understands, which once again, just a great way to differentiate the real people from the movie characters,
Right.
or other movie characters
Right.
in those
So,
same
yeah,
archetypes.
during this sit down, they've got Tina all wrapped up in a life jacket and oven mitts and great big boots to kind of prevent her from doing anything sexy. It's there's like duct tape attaching these oven mitts to her jacket.
Yeah.
It's good. And Nancy wants to know why Paula was the only one who could take out Billy, and the conversation turns to virginity being the defining characteristic of a final girl. And this is where Vicky wants to step up and nominate herself, and Chris calls bullshit on this. Um, and it kind of turns out that Max is it. Um, she doesn't think she can do it, and this is where Nancy nominates herself because she's still a virgin. Because she didn't go through with it with Kurt.
Yeah. I
But
didn't sleep with Kurt, so now I guess I'll be able to save myself for George Michael after all.
yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't hold
And
your breath, honey. Why?
yes, again with
Mm.
the fun 80s references there. They oh wow, they keep coming too. And Vicky's got to be a bitch about it here, calling her, she's not the final girl. You're the shy girl with the clipboard and the guitar. And Nancy runs off in tears because wow, yeah, she just got mean girled to death there.
Yeah.
Max goes after her and consoles her, and this is where they decide to fight. And I've got here in my notes: commence Operation Booby Trap. Essentially, the plan is to lure Billy into the slumber party with Tina as the bait. Um, and it's basically a montage of them, getting everything ready here. We've got Vicky apologizing to Gertie and Max. Essentially, she knows the score. Like you said, she knows she's the mean girl in the movie. They're past the halfway mark. She knows she doesn't have long to live. This is the moment to, really have it out. And, you know, she talks about how 3 years ago, when Max's mom died, how Max kind of shut down and it was hard for her to interact with her anymore. And then Gertie stepped in, and next thing you know, Max was just kind of lost to her.
Hmm.
And you get Gertie admitting to some shitty things she did to Vicky, and vice versa. And at the end of the day, they all kind of come to an understanding. It's
Yeah.
kind of touching. It's nice. I
Yeah,
liked it.
Vicky apologizes. I'm sorry for that time in junior high when I told everyone to start calling you Pajunkadunk and then covered your locker in bacon. That was so crappy. And then Gertie's like, "You're not. It's if it makes you feel better. Last summer, I'm the one who spread the rumor that you said you had a weird disease where you were always on your period."
Yeah, that's
Vicky
fucked
goes,
up.
"Wow, that's evil." And Gertie goes, "Thank you."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
it's
then it's
it's a
group hug
great
time.
good scene
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, it's a good scene of them like, hey, yeah, this is why I was shitty to you, why you were shitty to me, but we're in this together now. Let's work on
Hell
it.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're all carving spears. Um, they're getting some whittling done. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's a bit of whittling. You know, you
yeah,
got to whittle.
whittle everything in sight. So back to Tina trying to get her oven mitts off. She's still mystified by the cell phone. It's she's like, what's the thing she says?
What
Something
is this
about,
thing?
oh no, except I can't talk on this thing because it's not connected to anything.
Yeah, no, because she's like, "What is this thing?" And they're like, "It's a phone." And she's like, "What? That's a phone? Oh yeah, operator. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah, I can't because it's not plugged into the wall."
Yeah,
Like,
right. They just kind of give
um,
up on her again.
yeah, yeah.
And
She also we also kind of just glossed over a couple things when they're kind of explaining the situation, where everyone's kind of talking about why, because they bring up the virginity thing, and Max is like, oh yeah, Gertie too, and Gertie's like, oh actually no, last
yeah,
summer, and that guy Jerry, and Vicky's like, isn't he autistic? She's like, yeah, he's also very romantic. Like, so Gertie's out,
yep,
Vicky's out, Chris is, you know, I think like Chris also said he was out, Tina was out, obviously Kurt was out, and well, yeah, Kurt was definitely out.
yeah.
But yeah, so you get you get that the dialogue as to why it's got to be Max and Nancy,
Hmm.
because now Nancy is a virgin because of Max, and Max is a virgin because
Yeah,
life,
and
I guess.
yeah, and Chris steps in at this moment and kind of admits his fear to Max. He's very much afraid about the situation, and Tina finds the Adderall again. Um, yeah, we get Nancy and Max bonding while prepping these flaming arrows, and Nancy gives her a friendship bracelet, and Max, she wonders
Which was
if,
weird because I thought Taylor Swift invented those
I
3 years
mean,
ago.
yeah, this is
But
a
hey, you know
very
what?
forward-thinking film.
Yeah,
Um,
completely different universe. Yeah, you're right. You're
Yep.
right. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So
We've got Max wondering if Nancy could leave with them at the end of the film, telling her, she could be, whoever she wants to be. They have this nice moment, because Nancy realizes she does have aspirations. She
yeah,
has things that she wants to achieve with her life. And, well, unfortunately, they're interrupted because they got a bit of a situation, and we cut to Tina absolutely spazzing out on a shit ton of Adderall. She's like, "How many did
yeah.
you take?" She's like, "3. I mean, 10. I
10.
mean, 30." it's I read somewhere that that moment where she's hyper fixated on this fly buzzing around was that was an actual fly that she just happened to notice, and she was so in character for
Went
the
with it.
part that
Yeah,
she just went with it. That was
yeah.
perfect.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yes. I love cracked out Tina. Um, so yeah, they realize, okay, they're ready. It's time. Nancy, unleash the beast. And they put
So
a oof.
another thing here,
Mm.
going over about the rules once again. First time they get there, first time they wake up, Tina, hey, you know where the camp is? No. 92 minutes later, you know where the camp is? Yeah. No. 92 minutes later, do you know where the camp is? How long did they spend getting ready for this slumber party, and how much of it was spent off screen?
Yeah,
Because
I feel like
the
when
92-minute thing goes, then are we
yeah,
now in a, so does it make it a different movie? Like, is it a director's cut? Is it, something like that? Like,
how I interpreted it is if they are in the scenes with the people in the film, it takes as long as it takes. But if they're away from it, the movie just kind of keeps going on its own in sort of its
yeah.
own thing. It's, I guess, it's,
Once again, nitpicky about the rules and kind of
yeah.
how things work here.
I mean,
But
to be
but I'm just,
fair, with plenty of films like this, there are gaping plot holes. You could drive a
yeah,
cement truck through them, in
yeah,
most films. But yeah, it's yeah, doesn't exactly line up, but
yeah. And
eh,
like I'm nitpicking this once again. Love this movie.
yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
you do that with films that you love,
So
right?
charming. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Nancy unleashes the beast with Warrant's cherry pie. And we get cracked out Tina stripping off those oven mitts and starting her, very aggressive sexy dance. Um and ultimately when she's finally writhing around on the ground there, that's when Billy starts to come out of the mist. But when she sees him coming,
Yeah.
that's when
I
she
don't know if I don't even know if she sees him yet. I think she's writhing around and she is trying to lure him out, and you don't see him until she finishes the dance and she pulls up her bikini top.
yeah, that was the
And then
final
you
move.
just, yeah. Like
Yep.
you see the fog coming in, and then she does, she reveals herself now
Hmm.
out to the world, and then Billy just pops in.
Yep.
And
And
apparently
then,
she improvised this entire dance sequence, slammed a bunch of energy drinks to get in
oh, yeah.
character. Yeah, so
Yeah, well,
kudos.
in a little bit of a callback to earlier in the film, when she does see him approaching, she freaks out, realizes she can't do this, runs back into the house, trips over a trip line, and goes face first into a bear trap. Tina's out.
I knew that something happened to her. I forgot that her head went into the bear trap that they'd put on the ground.
Why that bear
And
trap was there, I don't know, because it didn't line up with the overall plan. Same with the tripwire.
no,
It's but that said,
yeah, yeah. But
that
there's the
said,
tripwire to maybe, I guess trip Billy on the way in, but then that also doesn't go with the other things that are happening. And then
yeah.
I think there's multiple bear traps actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well,
I'll have to
or it's
rewatch the scene at some
yeah,
point.
or it's just like a weird cutting because you see them open one up. And then
Okay.
the next thing is you see them looking through the front door as they're setting stuff up, and there's a closed one. So it's either
Huh.
there were multiple bear traps, or that was just like a, hey, we missed that this was already open over here, which could
Okay.
be either one. But it seemed like there were like they just had bear traps everywhere. Like he's not gonna look, or he's just gonna run over the. But yeah, that seemed to just be a bunch of traps, and they had a plan, I guess. But
Eh,
yeah, how that plan was supposed to work, yeah. But yeah, she trips face first into a bear trap,
Yep.
sets it off. She's gone.
But Chris is still fairly prepared. He continues with their plan. As soon as Billy has cleared the door and stepped inside, he slams it shut, revealing that they have all the antlers from the various uh, deer trophies around the cabin, all mounted to this door. And he signals to Gertie and Vicky to cut the cord on the totem pole, which swings down as a battering ram, jamming him back into this door.
Yeah,
So they've got him stuck on the door. Or no, it was Gertie and Blake, rather.
yeah,
Because this is the moment where Blake decides to confess his love to Gertie. And she decides, you know what? I'm just going to go with
yeah.
this. And so
Fuck
she
it. Yeah,
kisses him, which is really unfortunate because Blake then immediately steps downstairs to try to grab the machete because that was one of the parts of the plan. They need to get this machete into the hands of the final girl because she needs to use it to finally end Billy.
yeah. Because this is
Um,
the only way that
yep.
he could die is with his
Exactly.
own
Everything
machete.
else just slows him down, right? That was
Yeah,
their words. Um, so yeah. And Billy happens to wake up and just stab him with that machete. And I like the camera work in all this because it keeps going back and forth to people freaking out here and there, and then there's not like any cuts from a lot of this. It's all mostly
yeah.
one take
Just
of
kind of
this.
moving around and
Yep.
like turning and twisting. Yeah, and this this part of it was like, okay, they had this plan where the first part failed because of Tina. Cool.
Mhm.
Battering ram into these things, and now it's just okay. He's obviously out. So let's go over there and grab the machete. So they know the rules enough to where the only thing that can actually stop him is the machete. But then they just kind of assume, oh, he's now on these antlers, so he's stopped. So we can grab. It's going to be easy. Yeah. So just a horror movie, fun.
Oh yeah.
Why didn't
And
they all like try to go there? Why didn't you, fucking try to knock it out with a stick or
yeah,
something?
yeah,
Like, come on.
take a log, knock it out of his hand. Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Um,
but
and Billy pries himself off the antlers here, and everybody has moved on to the kitchen. And they're firing a ton of flaming arrows into his chest, and then they all run upstairs. And you've got Chris, Max, and Nancy climbing out the window as a bit of a distraction with Vicky and Gertie trying to pull the cord on a bucket that's up at the ceiling. It's got something in it, and I think it's fairly
and
clear
it ain't
what it would
confetti.
be. Yeah, exactly. And it's
Yeah,
not pig's blood either. It is
maybe corn syrup.
indeed. Probably not, because I think their whole plan was the flaming arrows and then being able to dump something flammable, except it's stuck. And then Billy notices them pulling on this thing. So he just rips the bookcases down on top of the two. And they're stuck. And he ends up stabbing Gertie through it. And Vicky realizes this is it. So she holds Gertie's hand and tells the rest to go. And she finally gets that bucket to dump. It was probably some of the booze that Paula had brought. Either that or they got
Yeah, something extremely flammable. Or they just
gasoline
I think
out
they
of
probably
the.
grabbed part of the bottle from the movie theater and they just had that with them
That could be. Yeah.
of that. Yeah,
Sloshing around
that's
there in a
probably what it
half
was.
broken
Yeah,
bottle. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes. And that dumps on him in slow motion. The explosion sends them flying out of the window in slow motion. The explosion itself bursts out of the house in slow motion. And Nancy asks in slow motion, "What's happening?" And Max tells her, "It's slow motion."
Yeah.
Yes, it's fucking
And I
perfect.
also I also wrote that explosion was way too goddamn big. They weren't going to survive that
Yeah,
if they pulled the cord at the right time. That was, but
yeah, whoever
yeah,
pulled that cord was going to be done.
yeah, they were
Um,
done. Yeah, but
but yes, we get Billy flying out of the window on fire after them, and Billy actually
great
is,
shot, fucking
oh
great
yeah,
shot of the dude
the
jumping out
the
on fire.
hero
Yeah,
shot of the
yeah.
killer. Yeah. Um, and I love how even though they're in slow motion, it's clear that Billy is actually able to run. He is running after them on fire still. Um, and yeah, they give chase. It's cool. He finally catches up with the three, and they're kind of cornered in this like creek bed where they can't really get up the other side, and he's got them pinned against.
So they're running in slow motion and they try to jump over this creek bed in slow motion and I think Chris is the last one to jump and Billy is like reaching out to grab his foot. Doesn't get to grab it, but it's like right as he touches it, the whole scene goes into regular speed and they just kind of fall straight down into
Okay,
this thing. And then it goes back into just normal speed, like which once again, a great, effect of it going just straight from slow like the one scene go and then full speed and they all just kind of realize, oh wait, yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
here
we're
we
back
go.
to normal. We're back to normal.
and
Yeah.
and Billy's just kind of staring at them because I'm sure the change of things kind of broke him a little bit too.
Yeah.
But
He's
this is
fucking confused. And they're
yeah,
not telling him anything.
I
Telling all the
know,
fucking
right?
counselors.
Big fucking help, guys. Um,
Jesus.
so this is where they suggest they try a flashback again since they're cornered. So they tell Nancy, just start your narration again
Yeah.
of the Billy story, and that takes them back to 1957. And as the car pulls into Lollipop yet again, it just plows into adult Billy, sending him flying. And actually
And sends him
flying
through the
through
summer
the summer
1957.
1957.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
the letters go flying. Yeah. Great.
It was
Great.
good. And this time when young Billy flees the outhouse with the Burns, they follow him and they discover this cabin in a section of the camp that Nancy's never been to before.
Mhm.
And older Billy finds them. So they hurriedly end the flashback. Um,
So one thing that
Mm.
right when he gets hit, he drops the machete into the grass,
Hmm.
and then because I literally just had it on my screen, so yeah, everything was black and white. Drops the machete on the grass right in front of them. Max grabs it, to pick it up
Oh, and
to
she talks about
take
how
it so he can
heavy it
have it.
is too.
She's like, "Oh, this is heavy." Yeah. And then another, maybe I think this might be one of the last things where I was like, "What the so what is this?" Because once again, we've established what the world is for the movie, yet now we're following Billy, who for like a kid with third degree burns is fucking booking it, and his clothes are perfect. But you follow him running to this cabin, running into the woods, and there's a camera shot of him running, and then they follow him into this cabin that they've never seen,
Hmm.
with everything in this cabin that they've never seen. So, like in my mind, this part is the only part that almost kind of makes sense, because I kind of looked at this as hey, this was a deleted scene from the flashback that wasn't in the movie. But obviously, this part of the world exists, which means that it was created for the movie,
As part of the
if that makes
director's cut.
sense.
Yeah.
It was part of the director's cut, as opposed to just, oh, things are kind of different now. No, like this is a whole new area and a whole new kind of uh, uh, almost plot point of the flashback, is that he runs into this cabin in the woods,
Hmm.
you know, pun intended, but and there's actually something there, and they can follow him there, and they come out of the flashback and they're there. So like this had to have been part of the world, like a
Yeah.
director's cut, like a deleted scene,
Yeah.
almost.
Absolutely. I like how the flashbacks are used to disorient and reposition people as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially in this section, they're using the flashback to move Billy away from them, yeah, to give them just enough of an edge to be able to try to get away. Um, so yeah, they end the flashback. They're back in modern times of 1986, and they try to climb up the side of that creek bed, but Billy returns. Chris tries to club him with a branch, but Billy stabs him in the gut, and he carries
because
Nancy
he has
off.
another knife, just like a small
Yeah.
knife, stabs him in the gut, picks up Nancy,
Yep.
is walking away with her.
Yep. And we get thunder and lightning crashing as Max helps Chris to this chapel to tend to his wound. And Chris tells Max that she needs to give up on Nancy because she's not real, and tells her he doesn't want to die alone. And
Yeah,
Max is like, no, fuck this. You're not going to die. I'm going to make this happen here. So, she goes off in search of Billy at that other cabin. And yeah, she's got that big ass machete with her again. So she finds the
just
cabin.
knocking shit over on tables
Oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah, because
magically
she
catching
grabs
them.
a
Yeah,
lantern from the outside, brings it in with her, and yeah, there's this jar of gross stuff, and everything's red inside this place. It's just over the top red. But
yeah.
yeah, you're right. She catches that thing and saves herself from being detected. She enters this other
She's
room.
holding the lantern, holding the machete,
Right.
knocks over a jar, catches the jar.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
whatever.
She's got
Uh,
skills. She's
yeah.
coming into her final girlness.
Knocks it over, throws the machete in the air, catches it,
Yeah.
catches. Yeah, yeah, it's a whole thing. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal. It was too expensive though to animate. Yeah, it was.
Um, she finds in this other room the bodies of all the counselors and Nancy tied up. As she's trying to untie Nancy, there's a flash of lightning, and Nancy can see Billy standing there, but then he disappears again in a subsequent flash. Um, and
The
then he
Batman.
returns in time to throw Max and Nancy around like rag dolls and stab Max in the gut with the machete again. And Nancy picks it up and stabs Billy, knocking him down, giving
I
them
think
time to escape.
I think we kind of missed. So Max does try to hit Billy with the machete, and it's just kind of bouncing off of him.
Yeah.
Like she tries to swing it, and he's just kind of swatting it away, and then
Yeah,
knocks her
and I
out or
think
knocks her over.
Nancy
Yeah,
has a bit of a better shot here because at this
yeah,
point, she's still kind of the final girl. So she's got that power, right?
yeah,
And so yeah, when she does stab Billy, it actually takes a little bit of the wind out of his sails. And yeah, the girls head back to the chapel. And Nancy tells Max she knows how to fix it. She's going to sacrifice herself so that Max can be the final girl. And Max, she wanted to save her. And
yeah,
Nancy, at the end of the day, feels like she did. She helped her to feel like, something of a real person.
yeah.
And
And she very much accepts the fact that she's not real. So she's like essentially like my death doesn't mean anything because if you die and then I live, you're a person, you're gone. If I die, like I'm in a movie, it'll restart. And she
yep.
she accepts that, but then she's like, yeah, you help me feel like more than just the shy girl with the clipboard and the guitar.
Hmm.
Um, and then we get just a real creepy scene, in my opinion. Um, Awkward as fuck
With Max
for
telling
for
her,
Max.
yeah, yeah, well, this is
Well,
where Max tells her that she's her mother, and that's why she's been so protective.
yeah,
Nancy tells her she's gonna have to let her go. It's, at the end of the day, again, not really her mother. She's not really
hmm
real.
hmm
It's, but they have something of a tearful goodbye. It's,
yeah.
what does Max say to her? Something along the lines of, I never got to tell my mother that I loved her. And Nancy's like, she knows.
Yeah.
It's,
And this was a thing where I once again looking way too deep into dialogue and kind of the rules of the movie in a movie where it almost seemed like Max was talking to her mom at this point
mhm,
because her mom playing Nancy obviously put part of herself in the character of Nancy.
sure.
So like the character of Nancy is the things written on the page, but then part of the character is the actress playing her, and she's playing her really earnestly as this, you know, I'm yeah, I wanted to come here and have sex and blah blah blah, but she's pretty much playing herself as a teen. So now that we're past the part where she's supposed to be dead and they can talk and talk more, like the character that was written of Nancy is fading away a little bit because the intentions and like the history of the character was never fully fleshed out. So that had to be fleshed out by the actress. Once again, looking way too deep into a silly slasher, parody almost, but it I that's just how that read to me is that Max was in a sense talking to her mom
Yeah. I
and her
mean,
mom was talking back.
this was that opportunity for her that she never got because
Yeah.
of the car accident and how that
Yeah,
played
so when
out.
she
So,
said I love you to her mom, like she actually it wasn't just yeah, she knows. It's no, she knows because you're telling her right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
It's well acted by both of them. It's, it's, this movie is surprisingly well done for what it is. It's,
Mhm.
yeah. And this is where Nancy steps outside to lure Billy into killing
This
her.
is the real awkward part.
Yes, because not only is she doing a sexy dance to Betty Davis eyes to lure Billy in, but she's also doing what Max's mother always used to do with her and the lip sync and everything.
Just
And
making direct eye
oh
contact
yeah, solid,
with this girl who just said,
aggressive
"You're
eye
my mom,"
contact.
while she's and it's like
And
I
part of
get
it, I
where you're
think, is
coming from, but
also,
that's
yeah,
you know,
yeah, but I
yeah,
think also part of it is to steel herself and get herself through this
yeah,
because she knows she's going out there to her death.
yeah,
It's, she knows what's happening, even though she knows it's not real. She knows this will just reset for her. But,
mhm,
but at the end of the day, she's still going out to get killed.
yeah. And the fact that it's it because she's lip syncing along to Betty Davis Eyes, which probably wasn't, once again, too deep into this, wasn't on the soundtrack to the movie in a movie. So that's something that the actress playing the character pulled out. Is that that's the song that's now. I kind of got the vibe that it was actually like playing in the world, kind of like how the
Yeah.
Jason sounds would play out. So she's hearing they're hearing the song, she's mouthing it along, and that's from the mom being the character.
Yep.
You know,
So with
way too deep once again.
yeah. You know what? That's all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Billy approaches and she knows he's right there, and the dance kind of falters a little bit. And she blows Max that kiss right before he offs her.
Just
And
straight stab through the back.
yeah, and
And that wide shot of him, yeah, walking up and killing her.
yeah,
Great shot.
and Max sort of slumps over as this happens, but as thunder and lightning crash again, because of course we have awesome sympathetic weather in this thing, she wakes up with this newfound power, and she gets up. She's healed. She
He's
picks
healed,
up
yeah,
that
obviously.
machete
Yeah.
and, does a little whip around with it in her hand there, and steps out of that chapel, and she gets to deliver Paula's line from the original film, "You just fucked with the wrong virgin."
Yeah.
And they tussle.
Yeah.
They
And good fight scene,
oh
actually.
yeah.
Pretty good.
I
Yeah.
love when Billy throws her back and she slides back through the grass. And
Yeah.
then she comes charging at him, and she does the slide on your knees through the glass or through the grass with
Through
the
the grass.
spinning knife
He
flying over
throws the
you.
knife and yeah.
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 And that
It's
that was it's once again like Max kind of completely understands what she is, like where she's at now and what she's doing. She's the final girl. She's got the final girl powers in the movie, so she can, she just innately understands now. Oh yeah, like I'm gonna run, and there's this like she knows that she can just slide on her knees all the way
uh
up to Billy, like, and she's got obviously more strength. Because
she
obviously,
can
like if it
matrix the
was
shit out of this.
she can matrix the shit out of it, yeah. But when he knocks her back, like that would just be something that would have killed her. But now she's the final girl, and she knows that she's got these final girl powers.
Yep.
So,
Yep. So
but yeah,
yeah, she
ducks it, slides under the knife. Yeah, fucking great.
Yep. So she gets him in the leg with the machete, and then as he's slightly stunned, she goes in for that final blow and lops his head off. And
I'll be
yeah,
honest, the scene that Duncan mentioned of Paula killing him seemed way cooler.
yeah,
Yeah, because he's like, yeah, she, hit him in the face with the machete, and his head went open, and then his brain jumped out. Like, yeah, like that seemed a lot cooler than his head just getting lopped off. Come on,
yeah.
but they'd
Yeah,
already
well,
spent all the money on that car crash at the beginning.
yes, they did. Absolutely. And with his head coming off, you start to notice all the purple light and everything in the world kind of going away, and it
Yeah,
becomes much more natural. But there's this glow, almost of a rising sun, except
yeah,
the glow isn't really coming from a rising sun, but it's coming from the end credits that are starting to scroll up over the hillside. And Chris comes out and joins her by this warm glow of the end credits, and they share a kiss. And then all of a sudden, the film truly ends with the MPAA rating of rated
yeah.
R, and they're like, "What the fuck is happening
And they
here?"
look around, yeah, and they see the rated R thing and everything. Yeah, it's which once again that was right at the beginning of the movie when she watches the trailer. That's the last thing you
Right?
see of that trailer is that same screen, which at the beginning I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of weird because I forgot that we get to this. But yeah,
Yep.
they're now the movie is over because Billy's dead.
Yep.
The final
And
girl's killed him.
they hold each other, and Chris is like, "Hold on," and because they don't know what the fuck's happening, because essentially the film reel is running out, and
Mhm.
everything starts coming to a crescendo and fading to white again, and Max wakes up in a hospital bed next to Chris. They made it.
They did it.
And next thing you know, she can hear Duncan, Gertie, and Vicky. They made it too. They're all talking about tapioca pudding. And Duncan
God, tapioca
has
pudding.
this horrible machete wound all stitched up on his side. And, he's like, yeah, we made it, but this actually happened to us. And, he starts going on about, the poor doctoring that he got. And, yeah, then,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it may have had tetanus because
yeah,
that
there's
I
some
saw
rust
some
on.
rust on that
Yeah.
thing, and that doctor did not give me a shot.
Yeah, and Max notices her friendship bracelet as Gertie and Duncan kind of get into it with each other a little bit there. And then we start to hear Billy's music again. And they all kind of poke their heads out from the room and look down the hall and find this doctor and nurse doing some really horrible flirting. And we get these, the camera whipping around to several 80s icons like a stuffed gizmo from Gremlins. We've got a Rubik's Cube. There was something else and I can't think what it
It was a
was.
can of tab.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
tab Rubik's cube gizmo. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, they realized they never quite made it out there in the sequel because they look down the hall and we see the title card of Camp Bloodbath 2 Cruel Summer, which is an awesome subtitle to a sequel in this series. And
Oh
we
yeah.
we get Billy
Yep.
bursting through the glass doors at the end of the hall with two machetes this time because it's, twice the terror, right? And Max ends up grabbing an IV stand and whipping it around to use as a, weapon of some sort. And Duncan makes some dumbass comment about how the sequel is so much cooler. And we cut to credits in Bananarama. And
Rule summer. Yeah.
hell yeah. And we get some fun bloopers,
Yeah. So
including one that's
one thing
technically
about this
not.
this yeah, one thing about this once again, it was kind of weird for Duncan's character that he has this encyclopedic knowledge of the first movie. Like fucking reciting dialogue with the characters.
Uh-huh.
It's 92 minutes. Like it's 92 minutes, boom. I'm going to do that. Yet he wakes up in the hospital here and doesn't immediately be like, "Oh yeah, we're in the sequel." Because then he says, "Oh, the sequel's so much cooler." So he obviously likes that. He seems like he likes that more and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, this is a sequel," you know.
Yeah, it's
It's a dumb
probably
thing. Duncan's
that.
a piece of shit.
Oh, he is. But
Let's be
it's
honest.
probably that the actual sequel probably has Paula waking up in a hospital bed and you've got the doctor and nurse flirting. And
Yeah.
because she died then in their version of the original film, those events don't exactly play out. They're probably in a completely
Yeah.
different room. It's, yeah. Uh,
Also, apparently they had two different endings filmed here.
yeah, I read
And
about
neither
that
of
as
them
well.
really tested well. It was one was just Max and Chris, and then one was everybody. And apparently they kind of, I don't know exactly how, but they mixed the two together. I'm
Yep.
assuming the first shot was just them waking up and the other ones were dead, and then it kind of cut to that. So but
Yeah.
neither one tested well. But yeah, they had the bloopers and the outtakes at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had Kurt still alive. With the only bone in his body not broken was the one in his arm. Yeah, his penis was actually split three
Yeah.
ways. It's desperately
Uh,
trying to hook up with this nurse. It's
yeah.
yeah, no. It's not happening for you, my dude. I'm sorry.
Like, and
But
it's like apparently just the creators liked Kurt so much that he's like he's got to survive. But because of the actual thing that happened now in the movie, him getting fucking scorpioned, obviously it's going to be much more different than him just getting, kind of stabbed. So,
yeah. 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 It's this was
a bunch of
absolutely a
outtakes
good
of him in the
movie.
car with Paula.
Yeah, yeah. Those were good. Yeah, I enjoyed those. They probably spent way too much time filming those scenes in the car, and they were like, "Okay, you want to go get drinks after this?" And there you go. The
Yeah.
rest is history. Um, yeah. But this is a really cool movie. I am so glad that you brought this one up because, again, totally flew under my radar at the time of its release. I only knew of it because of that other movie coming out, last year.
Follicular. Yeah.
And yeah, this was a ton of fun. Great cast, well acted. Robert, any final thoughts on The Final Girls?
Fucking watch it. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. If not, probably on Amazon to rent for like $2.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, just a fun comedy horror with that almost makes fun of like silly tropes in horror movies. If you don't think too deep into it like me, you'll just look at it and be like, oh, this is cool. But no, it's yeah, well acted. The story, for the most part, makes sense, and it's an original story. Is what I also liked about it.
Yeah,
Is it's not it's not time travel. It's not alternate dimension. Like no, this is you're going into a movie and you have to almost follow the rules of the movie, but you're breaking all those rules. It's fun movie. That's probably the best way to put it. Is that it's fun.
absolutely it
Watch
is.
it. Watch The Final Girls.
And again, where can people find you?
You can find me, for the most part, every week. Thursdays, new episodes go up of the Story Motors podcast. My buddy Mike and I, talk about video games, different topics, different stuff, different challenges for each other. That is every week on YouTube and on podcast services everywhere, I think, because Apple just fucking puts it everywhere for me.
That'll
But
work.
yeah, Story Motors podcast, and on Twitter at Story Motors Pod, and at Mr_Hawks for my personal Twitter account if you just want to see just a lot of wrestling stuff.
There you go. There you go. Well, this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are so inclined. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spoopy, everyone.